Welcome back to Boilers and Beyond. I'm Jordan Jones. It is Sunday morning here after Purdue's 41-7 loss to Ohio State. The Boilermakers finally get to head into their bye week, but they do so with a 2-5 record. We're going to break down the game today to whatever degree we can, looking at all things from Purdue's 41-7 loss to Ohio State, before looking a little bit big picture at where Purdue sits here as it heads into its much-needed bye week. If you don't already, please follow the show on Twitter, @BoilersBeyond. Lots of stuff going on there, especially with basketball season just around the corner. You'll want to be sure you follow there. And be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. I will be doing a bye week episode that's going to get recorded on Tuesday night, come out Wednesday morning. Just going to look at where Purdue sits after 7 games, some of the ups, some of the downs, some things that have surprised me. Plenty to talk about, though, after 7 games, but I need your help for the mailbag. Send in questions that you have about Purdue football at the bye week. You can send those in on Twitter, @BoilersBeyond, or you can email them to me, boilersandbeyondpod@gmail.com. Look, there's only so much to say about a game when you lose 41-7. This is not surprising at all. We had discussed on the pregame podcast, I had predicted 42-17. I had really said that this is not a game that I see being all that close. It really showed the gap in talent between Ohio State and Purdue, and there is really not much you can do to overcome that type of a talent gap over the course of 60 minutes. I thought right away in the game, you saw Purdue do a little bit of different stuff on offense. Purdue created a couple of first downs on that first drive of the game through different looks. Purdue had a fake toss left, roll right, throw. They ran a couple of different things that we hadn't really seen yet this year. Purdue did what it could early on, but ultimately, it wasn't close. Purdue gets outgained 497 to 257, so outgained by 240 yards. That's tough to overcome. Yards per play, Ohio State 7.2, Purdue 3.7. At the end of the day, these stats tell you all you need to know. These are two very different football teams, and these are two very different programs. Ohio State competes with the aspiration of winning national championships. Purdue really doesn't, at least right now, and for the majority of the history of Purdue football, it has not competed with the aspiration of winning national championships. It makes it even more remarkable that Purdue has defeated Ohio State 5 times in this century already. When you look at that difference in philosophy, it makes it even more impressive. But on Saturday, you saw two teams that are very, very different. And if we're being honest, this is not Ohio State's best team. It's still a solid Ohio State team. It's one that could win the Big Ten. It's one that could make the college football playoff. It's possible that it's one that could win the national championship. I don't know how many great teams there are this year. And when you have wide receivers like that, anything is possible. I want to start with a couple of positives here. There aren't a ton. However, it was really nice for Purdue to see Devin Mockobee have a good game. He finished the day with 110 yards rushing, 6.1 yards per attempt. A really nice bounce back for him. 2 games in a row now, too, because he was solid at Iowa. A really rough start. It was a bummer to see him get off to that rough start because when you just think of how much energy Purdue is invested in promoting him, how good of a story he was last season, there were a lot of real positives about Devin Mockobee, and he's a solid player. Just the fumbles early on were a struggle. Seeing Tyrone Tracy be better than expected at running back changed some things, but with Mockobee being the guy the last 2 weeks, he's been very good. Good to see him put together a strong performance. I think in the long term, Purdue might have something in this Derek Rogers Jr. at corner. A true freshman getting out there, playing against Ohio State, it's hard to expect much. It's hard to expect much at all. I thought he was fine. I thought he looked the part of someone who is ultimately going to belong at this level. And for him to get out there as a true freshman and show that, I think that's a pretty welcomed sight. You look at what Purdue's doing here, it's playing a ton of freshmen. Dylan Thieneman gets out there. He's started all season. He plays the most snaps of anyone on defense yesterday. Derek Rogers gets out there and plays. Yanni Karlaftis is a young guy. Botros Alessandro is a young guy. Moa Monade is just a sophomore. Will Helt getting out there a bit as a true freshman. These are a lot of really young players getting out there for Purdue's defense. That experience is going to be something that pays off on the back end. In 2-3 years down the road, that's going to be something that pays off. You're not going to see it right now because they're overmatched right now. But if they can continue to develop, you may have something in some of these guys. That's about really where the pros end, if I'm being honest here. Purdue struggled on Saturday. I did think there were a few situations that confused me from a game management standpoint. As I said, Purdue on that opening drive came out aggressive, came out trying to do some different things. It was interesting to me, though, when Purdue faced a 3rd and 8 from the 31-yard line, Purdue did not operate like it was in 4-down territory, and I expected it to. I was a little surprised to see Purdue take a shot to Garrett Miller, a deep ball that was overthrown, although he was pretty covered. I don't know how much Purdue was going to do there, but Purdue takes a shot on 3rd and 8 and then brings out Julio Macias for a 48-yard field goal that misses the net altogether. That surprised me a bit. I thought Purdue was going to be a little more aggressive in this game. Purdue did not play like a team that had nothing to lose. It attempted 3 field goals. Okay, I get it. You want to get points where you can, but Purdue was going to need touchdowns upon touchdowns to try to stick around in this game. I don't know that settling for 3 field goals is necessarily the most productive way to put points on the board to compete in this game. It didn't matter. Purdue wasn't going to compete nonetheless, but I was a little bit surprised to see Purdue handle the game in that fashion. A lot of discussion about the kicking game is starting to develop. Look, Purdue needs new kickers and punters for next year. That is becoming pretty clear at this point. Purdue's 3 of 9 on field goal attempts this year. You guys know football. I don't need to explain how bad that is, but you cannot do that. That can't be something that you roll over into next year and expect different results. I know sometimes kicking can be a fickle outcome. It's not always the most predictable. But my goodness, Ben Freehill struggled early on. He goes 1 of 3. He's missed the last few games with an injury. Julio Macias is now 2 of 6. Look, it's nothing against these guys. It's just not working. You cannot be 3 for 9 on field goal attempts through 7 games. That's a major gap. And, did it cost you at Iowa a little bit? Yeah, a little bit. That field goal would have been nice to have. Purdue missed a field goal against Fresno State. Would that have been nice to have? Yeah, because you'd be playing on that last drive with a minute to go to get into field goal range instead of to score a touchdown. It's just got, Purdue has a long list of portal needs after this season. Kicker and punter are both on there. It's not working for Jack Ansell either. Just 37 yards per punt on Saturday. Not good. Not good at all. He seems to have taken a bit of a step back from last year. I thought he took a nice step forward from his freshman to sophomore season, but he's struggling. He's really struggling. Purdue needs answers there. It's not going to get them during the season unless Purdue, has guys on the roster that it decides to throw in. Do we see Caleb Crockover start handling kicks? Maybe. Does Purdue go to Brendan Cropsey at punter? I don't know. It is worth noting Crockover kicked the extra point on Purdue's one touchdown yesterday. Purdue's got a problem there. Purdue's got a real problem there. Speaking of special teams, I was very surprised to see Devin Mockabee returning kickoffs. I don't love that. I don't think that's worth getting him hit on for something he's not done before. I don't know. Maybe Purdue just doesn't have other guys. Purdue's banged up. Tyrone Tracy did a nice job there. TJ Sheffield's kind of in the same boat where you don't want him to take too many hits that he doesn't need to because you need him at wide receiver. But I was very surprised to see Devin Mockabee back there handling kickoffs. A lot of conversation about Purdue's red zone offense. And of course, it's coming back on Graham Harrell. I get it. Folks are not thrilled with Graham Harrell. Okay. I've detailed why I don't think Purdue's going to make a change there. I don't need to rehash that over and over again. But this is what good defenses do to you. Keep in mind last year when Purdue faced Michigan, an elite level defense in the Big Ten championship game, Purdue had no problem moving the ball up until about the 30-yard line. At that point, Purdue struggled mightily to get the ball into the end zone. That's what good defenses do to you. And Ohio State has a good defense. It's Ohio State's best defense it's had in a few years. But that's what good defenses do to you. You can move the ball on them a bit. When you have that much space to work with, you're going to be able to move the ball a bit. But a good defense, the telltale sign of a good defense, is one that really makes you struggle in the red zone and forces you to kick field goals. The scenario that haunts Purdue is when it had 1st and goal at the 1, ends up attempting a field goal, it doesn't go in. Yeah, I mean, that's a problem, but it shows where Purdue is at its thinnest, and that's the offensive line. Purdue does not have a strong run push in those short yardage situations. It relies on its running backs to break off runs, break off explosive stuff, break tackles. All of that is required rather than Purdue simply just lining up and running at you. That's not new. That's not new at all. But for Purdue to have 112 of its 147 yards after contact, I mean, that tells you quite a bit. Purdue's offensive line does not pave much of a path for the running backs to work. Purdue commits a penalty in there. It's not just on play calling. It just isn't. If you want to question it, that's fine. That's fair to do after 7 points. After, Purdue had 14 points at Iowa. It's fair to do. The offense has ultimately not been great this season, but I think there are more problems than just Graham Harrell. If we're being fully honest here, a pretty underwhelming performance from Hudson Card. It was rainy. It was not a great weather day. It's not the easiest day to throw the ball in. 13 for 32 for 126 and a touchdown. Not good. Not good enough. It highlights Purdue's offensive line. Did he have a ton of time to work with? No. Does it highlight Purdue's lack of wide receiver explosiveness? It absolutely does. But Hudson Card did not look particularly good. For Purdue to pull these upsets, it needs really good quarterback play. You look at when Purdue has beaten Ohio State in the past, David Blau was excellent in that game in 2018. Drew Brees was excellent in that game in 2000, minus the interception late that almost cost Purdue the game. Purdue needs that type of play to beat better teams. You need the quarterback to be a difference maker and to be someone who neutralizes the gap. That didn't happen. That didn't happen on Saturday. Overall, this is something I'll certainly need to talk about on the bye week show, but Hudson Card has not been as effective as Purdue hoped, I don't think. I don't mean to drag him down because he has been fine, but overall, I'm pulling up Purdue's stats here. Purdue has not gotten high-level play. 60% completion for 7 touchdowns and 5 picks, 231 per game. I don't know. I don't know that that's what Purdue thought it was getting when it got Hudson Card out of the transfer portal. Late in the game, Purdue got a pretty big injury to take place when Muhammad Musa goes down. That came after Luke Griffin was carted off in the first quarter. They're stacking. These injuries are really, really stacking up on Purdue now. I don't know what there is to say or do. I think it's fair to question why Musa was in the game when Purdue was down 41-7, but nonetheless, it doesn't matter now. He's hurt. How severe? I don't know. We probably won't really find out much until closer to the Nebraska game. Ryan Walters doesn't love to talk about injuries. I can't blame him. Maybe he'll say something. He did acknowledge this week that injuries to Max Clare, Marcus Bowe, and Marquise Wilson were season-ending ones. I would think if it's a season-ending injury, he'll acknowledge it. As I said, coming into this one, the positions Purdue could least afford injuries to were offensive tackle and corner. Now your top corner's done, your right tackle is done, and we'll see about your left tackle. But if you're facing a situation where you're running Daniel Johnson and Ben Farrell out there as your tackles, Purdue's getting thin there. Purdue was already thin there, I guess. Purdue's kind of faced worst case scenario there. Some of these guys will be back. Tyrone Tracy should be back for Nebraska. O.C. Brothers got back, played a little bit on Saturday. But as a whole, man, Purdue sits here at 2-5. It's very disappointing to lose 4 of your 5 home games early on. It's a little bit of a bummer to see the student section packed for kickoff and then empty by halftime. I can't blame them, but it's a bit of a bummer. It was another good crowd, albeit one with a lot of Ohio State people. Purdue can't take that for granted. That's something that we've seen empty out quite a bit over the years before. We are not all that far removed from Purdue crowds being pretty sparse. I don't think we're getting back there, but attendance for Minnesota and Indiana later this year will be quite interesting to see. Purdue's only got 2 home games left. You would like to give the home fans something to go into the winter and the spring being a little bit more optimistic about. It would certainly help ticket sales for next year. I don't think this is where many folks thought Purdue would be. I can't say that I'm tremendously shocked by it, but I thought Purdue would be a little better. That's not the end of the world. It doesn't mean that all is lost on the Ryan Walters era or that Purdue can't improve and make this work, but it does show how far Purdue has to go. Purdue has winnable games in 4 of its last 5. It can beat Nebraska, Minnesota, Northwestern, Indiana. Michigan is going to be a bloodbath. But outside of that, Purdue can win these games. The question is, will it? These are games that Purdue's going to need to be better on the margins. It's going to need to be better in the red zone. It's going to need to be better on special teams. It's going to need a little bit better play from its quarterback. It needs these things to go well. The bye week comes at a great time. Purdue can get a little bit healthier. Purdue can rest up Hudson Card. Purdue can see what it has. If you lose Musa, you've got to start really working on this patched together offensive line, but you can do that during a bye week. All in all, there's not a ton else to say. I will do more of an in-depth look at the first 7 games during a bye week episode. As I said, please send over any questions. You can tweet them to me at BoilersBeyond. You can email them to me, boilersandbeyondpod@gmail.com. Thank you to those of you that are still listening. I know it's been a bit of a disappointing start to the year. The listenership numbers certainly reflect that. I appreciate those of you who are sticking around. Send over questions for the bye week episode. The basketball preview episode will be coming next week. That is probably going to post on Monday the 23rd. So send over questions for that if you like to. I appreciate you guys. Thank you very much. And until later this week, take care.